Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting Great British Road Journey. Today I've come to Gloucestershire, a rural county that's well known for absolutely nothing. But this won't stop us from taking a journey across this area of nothing in search of some interesting things. And indeed, today we'll be travelling from Moreton In Marsh to Stroud. And as always, to help navigate our way around, we'll be using my 1923 Michelin guidebook, period correct maps. And regular viewers might recall the name Moreton In Marsh because we've actually been here before. Moreton is home to the M96 motorway, but this didn't exist in the days of my guidebook when Moreton was a small village of around 1,400 people. A lot of the old town's architecture is made out of Cotswolds stone, an oolitic limestone, the same sort of stuff used in Bath. But what's interesting is that whilst the stone is basically the same stuff, its colour varies according to region. It's a golden yellow colour in this part of the country, but as you go further south and into Somerset, it becomes much whiter. On the subject of architecture, my guidebook suggests we visit Sezincote House, a 3,500-acre country estate featuring a rather interesting building. Built in 1805, Sezincote House is described as a 200-year-old Mughal Indian palace set in a romantic landscape of temples, grottos, waterfalls and canals, reminiscent of the Taj Mahal. No. That said, the inspiration for the building was genuine. The estate was owned by a bloke who had been working for the East India Company, meaning a lot of time spent in India, and on his return to England, he wanted his estate house to be built in a Mughal architecture style, and this is what they came up with. Today's journey consists of mainly two roads, and the first is the A429, which is also known as Foss Way. This is a Roman road, so the route of it has been around for ages, but we've actually mentioned this road before in a previous episode. Foss Way runs for bloody miles, and part of it is made up by the A367 between Bath and Shepton on Mallet. Whilst it may have different road numbers, it's the same road. Our next destination is the village of Bourton On The Water. Is it on the water? Yes, it is. The 40-mile-long River Windrush passes through the village, making its way to the River Thames, and the River Windrush is regularly used for dumping sewage in by Thames Water. But on the plus side, they're making millions of pounds of profit every year, so... My guidebook suggests that maybe we'd like to visit a local manor house, but we sort of did one of those already, so instead the plan was to come and take a look at the Cotswolds Motoring Museum, which is now closed for winter. A complete waste of time, and that's probably a good 2 minutes off the length of this video. I am so disappointed that the Motoring Museum is closed for winter. That was meant to be the main highlight of the video, so I imagine it's going to be quite a boring one. Anyway, we must move on, and if you're in the area and fancy a spot of coffee or some lunch, then why not check out the old prison just off the A429 in a place called Northleach. Known as Northleach House of Correction, it was constructed in 1792, and much like Shepton Mallet Prison that we've seen previously, it featured a treadmill for those sentenced to hard labour, connected to a corn mill that was housed in this building, which was later converted into a police station. Although interestingly, before the treadmill, there were hand winches that would have been used for the same purpose. The prison closed in the 1930s, and most of it was demolished, but what remained was turned into a cafe and visitor attraction. I still haven't gotten over the fact that the museum was closed, and I had to rewrite this voiceover as a result. It's just a hassle. But anyway, our journey must continue, and it will do so along the A429, which takes us into the largest town on today's journey, Cirencester. I think we're going to go with Cirencester. In the days of my guidebook, Cirencester wasn't really that big a town with around 7,000 residents, but it is quite old, being one of the earliest Roman settlements established sometime around the year 50 AD. Interestingly though, in those days it's believed that Cirencester was the second largest town in the country with a population of around 10,000. In the centre of Cirencester today we find the remains of a Roman amphitheatre which had the capacity to hold 8,000 people, nearly the entire population of the town. Just by the amphitheatre is another one of those bloody obelisks. The Cirencester obelisk was definitely installed in history, but nobody knows for sure exactly when, neither do we know why it was built, but it's definitely here. A short distance from Cirencester is a field, but it's interesting because it's here that we find the source of the River Thames. Yeah, that Thames, the one that goes through London. It starts all the way out here in Gloucestershire. Known as Thames Head, it's a group of seasonal springs, and the water rises up from a layer of water known as an aquifer buried between layers of limestone that make up the Cotswolds and the surrounding area. There's not much to see here, but I thought it was quite interesting. More water-based interest can be found a short distance from there by way of the Sapperton Canal tunnel. When the tunnel opened in 1789, it was the longest canal tunnel ever constructed at over 2 miles long, a record that was beaten in 1811 by the Standedge tunnel that's over 3 miles long. Like many tunnels of this type, there were no towpaths and boats had to manoeuvre themselves through the tunnel using a process known as legging. This is where you would lie on your back on top of the boat and walk the boat through the tunnel using the tunnel's roof. Over the years, such a process has taken its toll on the tunnel's structure, leading to several roof collapses, and the last boat to pass through was in 1916. Interestingly though, if you look at an aerial photo of this area, you notice several clumps of trees. These are in fact spoil heaps that were left over from the canal tunnel's construction. Interesting detours over, and it's time to head towards our final destination, and to do so we'll be using road number 2 of the day, the A419. This will take us straight into Stroud, but as we pass through the village of Thrupp, I couldn't help but notice a chimney of sorts. This usually means something interesting, so let's make a quick stop. The chimney is part of what was known as Ham Mill. It opened in the early 1600s to manufacture red cloth and fabric for use in military uniforms. The buildings that we see today were mostly constructed in the mid-1800s at a time when half of the site was used as a sawmill and the other half continued with production of red fabric. The last company to operate here were Bondworth carpet weavers, who took over the mill in the year 1900 and would go on to employ 700 people. This lasted for 100 years, with the mill closing in the year 2000, and it was supposed to be turned into a housing estate, but it's still here. And just like that, we arrive in the town of Stroud. In the days of my guidebook, a busy place with around 8,500 residents, most of which would have worked within the cloth and fabric industry at mills much like the one we just saw. My guidebook suggests that maybe we'd like to take a look at Stroud School of Art, which today is not a school, and I don't think it was in the days of my guidebook either. It was built in the late 1800s, and certainly it was designed to be a normal school, but it ended up being used as a science museum and a school of art, which I don't think is the same as a normal school. I think it's recommended by my guidebook because of the building's elaborate design, synonymous with the late Victorian era, and yeah, fair enough, I think it looks fantastic. An interesting feature are the 7 roundels that depict 7 famous scientists. You've got Faraday, Kelvin, and others. And there we are then, guys. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That would be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John. You've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting Great British Road Journey. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.